Our reading invited us to be into the presence of the unknown, unashamed, unadorned, and unafraid. I find such an admonition far from simple to fulfill, particularly for me in the weeks since our recent election. Like many of you, I had hopes. I went to bed the election night after a gathering of friends, not knowing what the results would be. I had spent the evening with those friends. We gathered to have a meal and share together the results from the elections as they were reported. And when we left that evening, we didn't know yet what would happen. We just didn't know. In morning, I knew a dark shadow might be cast across our nation for at least the next 4 years.
Our speaker is going out.
So what is?
There's a crackling.
There's a thunk. Is it in the mic?
It's the coil
It's
in the speaker.
Okay. Well, it seems to have gone away miraculously.
He just wanted attention.
What was that noise? We don't know. It was the unknown.
Come together.
And when I found out the election results, I have to admit, I was in a kind of shock. And that Wednesday morning, when I looked out the window, the fog-shrouded morning seemed a reflection of my unclear inner state. I did not know what to feel or how to feel. I felt strangely numb. I recalled a poem a friend had sent me on election eve by Allison Litterman called Holding Vigil. The poet compares the awaiting election results and now awaiting to see what the lasting impact of that election will actually be, to awaiting information about a beloved's medical condition. She wrote, "I don't think I can describe this moment, heavier than plutonium, but on the other hand, in the grand scheme of things, I mean the whole sweep of human history, a soap bubble, because empires are always rising and falling. And whole civilizations die. They do. They get wiped out. This happens all the time. It's just a shock when it happens to your civilization, your country, when it's someone from your family on a respirator. It's not just us older people, forget about us. We had our day. And we burned right through it. Gasoline, fast food, cheap clothing. But right now, I'm talking about the babies. Not just the human ones, but also the turtles and owls and white tigers, the redwoods, the ozone layers, the iceberg. For the love of God, every single blessed being on the face of this earth is holding its breath in this moment. We all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. We all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. I did manage to live through the election night and beyond. And I know the past elections, and I know some of the responses here in West Lane were different than around me in Eugene. Many of your neighbors celebrated. An odd benefit of the MAGA victory in the recent elections is concerns about post-election violence that some worried about never materialized. In our progressive faith, many mourned. I do not know what the next 4 years really will be like. I know I will be protected by my privilege from some of the worst impacts that a judgmental, angry, and impulsive federal government might bring. But my heart is breaking for all that will be lost and the real pain that will be shared by so many on the margins. My heart aches for those of the LGBTQ community lost whose fear is legitimately increased. For the brown people and any who speak Spanish who will all too often be seen as immigrant, no matter how long they've been in this country. For women who will be protected even from their own longings and autonomy. And for the people of color who are often seen as other, as them. For the well-being of other species, and for the atmosphere that surrounds us and tempers the climate. There will be much to mourn, and mourning is where we truly need to begin our journey. I've needed to weep a bit these last couple of weeks, and I got downright teary over Kamala Harris's concession speech. I also struggle with and am saddened by an understanding that so many of my fellow citizens are so angry and dissatisfied. I do not know how many voted for Trump in spite of what he is, or how many did so precisely because of his anger and vitriol. I do not know. I weep for them too, because I'm deeply pained that they felt so disappointed and frustrated. I do not think the fix they desire will somehow magically emerge and that a self-focused individual will be the redemptive savior that many seek. I mourn for their loss of faith in an American progress that benefit and include all. I deeply mourn. The words from Black women these last 2 weeks make me again look with sadness at the persistence of paternalism, misogyny, and racism. Though I continue to hold fast in my faith that love is stronger, I weep that it has not yet prevailed. How long will deep reconstruction of such systems take? The answer tends to be blowing in the wind, because I do not know. As today's reading suggests, I approach the mystery of the unknown realities of life and our political circumstances cautiously, lest I overreact or slide toward passivity. Many of us may need a break from the news, a break from the divisiveness that is bubbling over in our communities. Sometimes non-action is better than wrong action. So let's pause. Let's breathe. I'm not proposing doing nothing, but rather being mindful and intentional about what we do choose to do. I'm not stepping back or retreating in fear, but rather cautiously and carefully paying attention to my own thoughts, as well as how my actions might possibly make things worse. Even when I'm deeply disappointed and dismayed, I will seek to continue to become my best self. I act reverently, recognizing that I'm part of a faith community and that I'm called by our shared values. Sophia Bencourt, president of our Unitarian Universalist Association, in the days following the election offered that there is so much that we cannot yet know. Even if we know the shape and fear the character of our next governmental administration, we cannot fully know what is yet to come in this country. What I do know, she wrote, is beyond any reasonable doubt is that we are a sanctuary people. We can make that claim from the powerful efforts of our elders in the middle of the 20th century through to our congregations and communities offering shelters to migrants today or cold neighbors. Whether Harbor or Pink Haven, our homes, sanctuaries, and even our national headquarters model what it means to offer solidarity, shelter, and asylum in the face of what many of us cannot begin to imagine. These are times that will be defined by the continued and increased need for organizing and a faithful commitment to mutual aid. She continued, I want to invite all of us back to what we learned in our earliest understandings of what humanity itself means. We draw our purpose from the call to honor and uphold the non-negotiable sacredness of each and every person, of earth, of all beings, bound up together in an abiding love that rests in the call to justice. An abiding love that rests in a call to justice. I move forward hopefully, filled not with a grasping desire, a kind of hope, but a deeper, wiser hope. Roshi Joan Holofax writes, I have often been troubled by the notion of hope, but recently, in part because of a book by the social critic Rebecca Solnit and her powerful book, Hope in the Dark, I'm opening to another view of hope, what I call wise hope. Buddhists know that ordinary hope is based in desire, wanting an outcome that could well be different from what will actually happen. Not getting what we hope for usually is experienced as a kind of misfortune. Someone who's hopeful in this way has an expectation that always hovers in the background. The shadow of fear that one's wishes will not be fulfilled. Wise hope doesn't mean denying these realities, but it means facing them. Wise hope is not seeing things unrealistically, but rather seeing things as they are. It's when we realize we don't know what will happen that this kind of hope comes alive. In that spaciousness of uncertainty is the very quiet we need to act. In the spaciousness of uncertainty is the very space we need. The Czech statesman Václav Havel said, hope is definitely not the same thing as optimism. It's not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that doing something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. Halifax continues, we can't know, but we can trust that there will be movement, there will be change, and that we will be part of it. The vows of the heart, the Mahayana tradition, are, if nothing else, a powerful expression of radical and wise hope, an unconditional love. As Unitarian Universalists, we too lift up and affirm a wise and radical and unconditional hope. Halifax reminds us we are called to live with possibility, knowing full well that impermanence prevails. So why not just show up? And so I show up quietly. I need quiet time to grieve and time to ponder future possibilities. On the Wednesday after the election, I gathered, as I do almost every Wednesday morning, before my computer screen for a virtual meditation group with people from the Eugene Unitarian Universalist Church. My friend Jennifer Tucker, who leads the online meditation, reminded us that day that you are the same you today that you were yesterday. And so we sat together. The Catholic monk, mystic, and meditator Thomas Merton, in an essay later collected in a book titled Contemplation in a World of Action, wrote, One who attempts to act and do things for others or for the world without deepening their own self-understanding, freedom, integrity, and capacity to love will not have anything to give others. He continued, we are living through the greatest crisis in the history of man, and thus crisis is centered precisely in the country that has made a fetish out of action and has lost, or perhaps never had, a sense of contemplation. Far from being irrelevant, prayer, meditation, and contemplation are of the utmost importance in America today. He wrote those words in the 1970s. Another difficult time. They echo an oft-repeated truth. And so we move forward quietly, respectfully, cautiously. In the days leading up to the election, the journalist, writer, and historian David Talbot wrote, and so now as the Trumpian sound and fury grows louder by the day, along with the agonized cries and reaction, I try to find moments each day which I calm my frantic mind and withdraw to a quiet place inside me. As the cabinet appointments and plans for deportations and tariffs, as the news report I heard on NPR on the way over here echo in me and potentially raise my sense of anxiety, I seek to withdraw to quiet places inside. What will happen? I don't know. I do not know. I cannot know. Yet to help me make it through, I look to Buddhist teachers and practitioners. For that practice and those practitioners for me combines quiet and reverence in a way that feeds my non-anxious, non-grasping hope. The writer Christina Moon reminded me that being the person we want to be, regardless of our external circumstances, takes a great deal of work. Moon advises doing simple, repetitive, but vigorous physical work, whether it's martial arts, endurance activities like running, or challenging manual labor like chopping wood, can dissipate difficult feelings and lead to more clarity, perspectives, and calm. This reduces the store of emotions one carries, makes it easier to either not have difficult emotions like anger flare up, or to be more effectively perceive and deal with what's right in front of us, even if anger is present. Also, pushing oneself to get out there, even on days when one doesn't feel like exercising, is a powerful will to build willness and discipline, which can be put to good in the face of difficult circumstances. So each day in these past weeks, I've been spending time in my garden. I installed some terrace box back there for my now raised garden beds. I dug a trench along the edge of my gravel driveway, and in that trench I put some soil and planted those flower rhizomes my friend Keith had recently given me. When summer returns, they will bloom. I also go out into the driveway and I get down on my knees, not to pray, but to go over those persistent dandelions that keep springing up. I'm also part of a native habitat restoration project through an interfaith Earthkeepers group in Eugene. And we regularly go to an area called Turtle Flats near the confluence of the coast and middle forks of the Willamette River. I recently spent a day there. I got down and dirty pulling out blackberries. I call it rooting out evil. And from time to time, I pause to look up into the sky, because there are often red-tailed hawks there circling up above, and occasionally one might spy an eagle. Yet that last time I was there, it was a cloudy day, and I couldn't see the birds overhead, but I could hear the persistent echoing call of the geese making their annual journey from homeland to homeland, place to place. That call echoed across the wetlands. Vice President Kamala Harris, in her concession speech, offered this message with which I'll close. Hear me when I say the lights of America's promise will always burn bright as long as we never give up, as long as we keep fighting. On the campaign, I would often say we fight. When we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is we don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. And don't ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. The time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. And she closed with this. There is an adage a historian once called a law of history, true in every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we're entering a dark time, but for the benefit of all, I hope that's not the case. But here's the thing, America. If it is, let us fill the skies with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. May it be so. May we all be part of making it so.